maybe, yeah, I will kick it off to you guys and let you lead the whole thing, and I will just listen. And I'm gonna, as always, I look at the chat. I know Rose is pretty late where she is in Australia, so I'll just kind of like jump in maybe with some comments if I see something on the text chat.
Mhm.
Yes, I will. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Let's do it. Yeah, we have a little presentation, but we want to do it more like a conversation. So please stop at any time. Stop us and just ask all any questions you may have or comments.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, why don't you start the story of Dada? You want to start? You go ahead.
As an artist, she was always far more eloquent and far more expressive with making art, by making art and drawing,
Visually,
than visually than by having to deal with words. I'm a writer, so that is not a problem that I have. I have the opposite problem. But she's like, I really resent the tyranny of the word, which is something that I'll never forget. She said, and let's have visual conversations. So artists are not only going to draw on Dada, but they're also going to talk to each other through drawings. We're going to create a platform with which we you make a drawing in our very simple canvas with a very simple tools in our digital canvas, and then somebody else can reply with another drawing. And so this is an example of what happens in that somebody decided that artists to make their like funky self-portraits, and each artist, people from different parts of the world who don't know necessarily each other at the beginning.
Judy, Judy,
Yeah,
Judy, we're looking at the first slide.
I know we are, but I think it does represent what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but you say look
Oh,
like
we're looking at the
portraits.
first slide. It
Yeah.
didn't show. It didn't
No,
show the portraits.
no.
Oh, okay. Hold on one
You
second.
have
Let
to
me see.
play, I think.
I
Yeah.
played for me, but let me play. All right. Let's see. Oh, play. Okay. Let me know if that works now. Does
Yeah,
that
that
work?
it's working.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
So
working.
as you can see, you can be in Italy or you can be in Kenya or you can be in Peru, and somebody makes a drawing and somebody else replies with another drawing. And what happens is absolutely magical, which is people kind of take the lead of the person who started it. I call it kind of like a jazz improvisation or like a music jam, in which somebody puts out something, the colors and the theme and the topic or whatever, and people respond. So it's a conversation, and that is important to make the distinction that it's not just I'm going to draw on top of you or next to you. I'm actually going to respond to you. I'm actually going to reply, and we're going to communicate. And so that's basically the genesis of
Yeah.
Dada.
So what happens is that we create all these like very, very strong bonds by drawing with each other. And and I think go back. Actually, I don't know why. Oh, interesting.
I don't
Um,
know why there's a Pepe Basquiat in there.
you have you actually have an old version of the presentation. That's interesting. Let me
Oh,
see.
okay.
No, it's okay. Let me see if I
Okay.
can send it to you.
No. Let's
Upload it.
just be. It's such a pain in the ass. Please
Yeah,
continue.
but it's okay. But what happens is that we actually get very strong bonds, and so this community was always really, really strong. Everybody's doing what they're doing motivated by intrinsic rewards. There was never possibility of selling anything on data, or it's not about showing your best work. It's not about looking for followers or likes. Is the opposite to Instagram. Is a community that just love what they're doing, and we create friendships. No, so the main thing when we were trying to see, because we were a startup, trying to see how to make money, basically, not only as a company but for the artists, because we were all creating so much value. There's I think 130,000 drawings on data, and there are
Right now we're
thousands.
over 135,000.
Yeah, there are
over that.
thousands of these conversations, and they're amazing. Some of them are really, really incredible. And so we realized that every normal traditional business model will destroy this community. We knew that from the start, and we tested different things, and we never implemented them because it was obvious it was going to destroy the beauty, the very reason why the community is so creative and special. So you can go to Pepe now. You're on mute, Judy. You're on mute. You're on mute.
That's like the way when I can you hear me? I don't know why. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
No? Okay. There's a delay. The way I like to visualize it is, imagine that conversation you just saw. You put like an icon of like a cash register right on top of it, which is what like a marketplace would do. Well, then the reason why it would destroy the community is because everybody would start wanting to see what sells more and who sells more and why this sold and why didn't this sell. And we just knew that it was going to destroy not only the community but also the art. It was going to destroy the spontaneity and the freedom with which people create art. So now I'm going to go to the Pepe Basquiat.
Yeah. So in May 2017, I started reading from this venture capitalist blog the thing about decentralized applications. And because we valued the community so much, we were already really thinking, how do we make sure that they capture value? Because if we get VC money, we get a lot of money as founders. The employees will get money. The investors will get money. But there's no guarantee that the community is going to get anything from that value. And so, there's really no guarantee at all. All that, you will hear exit to community. That's all bullshit. There's no way to guarantee the community will actually get returns in an infrastructure of a company. So when I started reading about decentralized organizations, then it really felt that it was the right way to go, even though it was really difficult to understand what was blockchain back then. And then there was the Rare Pepes. And I saw Rare Pepes for the first time in May 2017. And I was like, oh, this is interesting, because now we're talking not only about decentralized communities, we're also talking about digital art being, for the first time, possible to be verified. And so by May, I went to the first Ethereal Summit. That was May 2017, and it blew my mind. Back then, it was also very different from what the market is today, or what the ecosystem is today. Back then, it was all about, all the conversations were about accessing this new financial system for people who had no access to the traditional financial system. They were talking about, in English, is banking the unbanked. There's 2 billion people who have no access in the world to financial services. And part of that is because they don't have access to identity. And so the idea that we could surpass governments so that people who are poor, just because of this like crappy sort of infrastructure, was really, really potent. I mean, it was really incredible. And then every conversation was like that, like the how to blockchain could bring transparency to the chain of supply, so that you could know when like some like high fashion brand where they're actually getting their fabric from, or who is actually sewing their like things, so that you could understand if they're like exploiting people in India or in Bangladesh or things like that. So that was really remarkable and incredible. That was why we actually went into blockchain. Very different from what it is today. I would say it's the opposite, actually. And so if you want to go the next one. So we went straight into blockchain.
Is it playing?
No, just like go to the next slide.
Okay, hold on. It's like, okay.
Oh, there, now it is. And so we were went like straight into blockchain, understood everything, talked to everyone. At the time the CryptoPunks came out, we talked to them. We were all in New York, so we were able to talk to them, get their smart contracts, work on their smart contracts, and launch the Crips and Weirdos. And this was one of the first tokenized collections on Ethereum. And it's remarkable, one, because it's the first really decentralized marketplace that preceded anything like Super Rare or Non-Origin or those kind of art marketplaces, because it was art by artists, and it was a...
Oh, hold on. I think we lost her, right? So yeah, to continue with it, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. To continue with what Bea was saying, it was again, right after the CryptoPunks came out, right before the CryptoKitties came out, right after the CryptoPunks came out, and right before the CryptoKitties came out, we took some drawings from different conversations. We decided to launch this on Halloween, which was October 31st, 2017. And it was the first art by actual artists, like made, like what we call digitally handmade by artists on the Ethereum blockchain. And this slide has kind of another slide that plays, but I'm going to try to see if I can play it. But I don't know. Oh, here. So I can talk. Let me know. So we did 5 different levels of scarcity. Can you see the video? And we had common, uncommon, rare, etc. And we did 16,000 of them in our own marketplace. And there's 108 different works of art made by about, I believe, 28 different artists, mostly from Latin America, but we have Thursday from Italy as well. So that was, I guess that's why we are considered OGs. But not only that, we also coded royalties for artists in our smart contracts, and I believe that was the first time that was ever done. So
for NFTs.
You came back. Okay.
Yeah,
You wanna take it from there? Okay.
No, go to the next one. I don't remember which one is, but
okay, I'll show
basically,
you.
what happened after that is the CryptoKitties came out. The entire ecosystem went insane, and then it sort of galvanized the communities, and we did the Rare Fest. And the Rare Fest.
I wanted also to include the fact that we appeared at one of the
Ethereal Summit, that was in 2017 or 18? Yeah.
No, that was
2018.
afterwards.
On
That was
2018, yeah. And Bea did like this keynote address, and at the time,
No, but hold on.
oh, you're gonna
Let's
get
talk
there.
about let's talk about the Rare Fest first because it's important. You may have a slide about it, but if not, don't worry. But what is important about the Rare Fest, it was like one of the most amazing moments, I think, I've been in my life in terms of, it really felt like the start of something incredible. And the whole, it was the first time we all met each other, everybody that was working on projects, CryptoPunks, Decentraland, everybody was there. And it was a really important moment in the crypto art movement. But by the end of the day, and it was an incredible day, but by the end of the day, when they did the auction of the Homer Pepe, it became clear, to me at least, that the ecosystem was going to just become this speculative market that was going to be promoting, that was revolutionary for artists, but it was not going to be the case because you can't have you can't really benefit artists in a speculative market. It's just not possible. So what I saw in January of 2018 was that by 2021, artists who were coming into the space were probably not really have any chance or have a very minimal chance of succeeding. Why? Because that's how speculative markets work. So if you're early, you get an advantage, an unfair advantage, they call it. If you are in early, you might be successful, but at the more the market matures, the more high prices you get, and the more people it attracts, the bigger the gap between the artist who made it or who makes it and the majority of artists who are going to be trying to make it, who are going to be trying to sell stuff, but nobody's going to notice. So I knew that intuitively in that night of the Rare Fest. So that night we decided not to sell anymore, not to develop the market anymore, and really focus on what the technology could do in terms of changing the paradigms, changing the structures that make markets so always produce extreme inequality, a few winners, and a bunch of long list of losers.
And to give people a bit of like context, because when Bea talks about the auction of the Homer Pepe, two things were auctioned that day. One was a Homer Pepe and I think it went for $39,000, which was absolutely unheard of. Oh, it's as if like a CryptoPunk goes for $12 million today. Or like the Beeple. It was unheard of. And there was, I think, a CryptoKitty that also went for like
no, it was a Rare Pepe.
But also but there was also a CryptoKitty that made a lot of money.
That was later in the Ethereal Summit.
No, there was a Rare Pepe and a CryptoKitty. Two things were auctioned that day. I remember that perfectly.
There were no CryptoKitties on that event. They couldn't come. That's anyway. It doesn't matter. They went for a lot of money, and they were just like this, like images, right?
Yeah. So just to give people context, then because one of these things that no one understood how even it worked, very few people were collecting. Somebody had paid $39,000 for it. It got a lot of press. And it was so early that they weren't even called NFTs yet. Nobody knew how to call them. We used to call them rare art or blockchain art or crypto art. Or it was a very, very early time.
But it's also that people seem to understand is just price. So everything, like it was the amount of innovation that was happening at that time was so incredible. And yet the New York Times, the Paris Review, all the big mainstream media only focused on Homer Pepe being bought for 39,000. That's all they talked about. So
Also
so
because you know that's such much an easier story to tell than try explaining the blockchain to people, right? Try
yeah.
explaining how this works and why this art that you have on your screen you can own and belongs to you, and those, you know, even though you can also copy it from your screen and screen grab it. That was like people had a hard time understanding that. So that's why they focused on the sales. But to this day, now that they understand it, they also focus on the sales. The 4 years have elapsed, you know, and still that's the narrative.
Well, because they're feedback loop. So if you want, just close the presentation. It's okay, so that it
Okay.
doesn't take so much of the bandwidth.
All right.
But yeah, so that was really clear for us. Yet we were very big at the time because there was no other art marketplace. Super Rare and Known Origin came out 6 months later. So for us, we were the only ones dealing with art, and so we were able to go into all these like different platforms in terms of talking at Christie's, doing a keynote in the Ethereal Summit, going to South by Southwest. I mean, all the big things, just talking always over and over about how important it was to use the technology to actually create a completely new system and leave the markets and the social structures of social media behind. And at that time, because it was much more idealistic, everybody was really behind the idea of empowering artists and for this technology to be revolutionary. But then what happened is that it really continued developing as a market, and not just as a market, but as a collectible market. So it was a market that didn't consider, like, that was prioritizing collectors because it was about collectibles and not artists. And so what we see,
at the very beginning, really, I mean, Jason tends to say that at the very beginning, like there were no collectors. At the very, very beginning, there were also not that many artists, and then collectors started to be prioritized. But that was later on. I mean, before there were very few people who were collecting.
Well, there were very few people doing everything.
Yeah.
That's a moot point because there was very few people in general. So there were very few artists, very few platforms, very few collectors. But that doesn't mean, I mean, they were collectors. CryptoPunks had a lot of collectors. We had a lot of collectors. We had 200 collectors by November to 2017. That's a lot of people. And so it's not that there were not collectors. It's that when in the market, like all these platforms started, they started being founded. There were too many platforms for the amount of people that were on the blockchain. So it was about looking for artists, and it was about looking then, after you got all the artists, then looking for collectors who will buy. But that just tells you how everything was about buying and selling. And if anything, if we could leave anything on this call, is that NFTs and the blockchain technology is so much more than just buying and selling. It's an incredible technology. We can basically redefine how we create, how we collect, how we interact with,
how we collaborate,
how we can completely redesign how we think about ownership. No, it doesn't have to be private ownership. It doesn't have to be about scarcity. It makes no sense that digital things in general are about scarcity because it's completely artificial. And so it should be about abundance, and this technology actually give us the opportunity to make it about abundance, to make it about remixing art, to make it about collaboration instead of what is actually being used.
And I think that's really important because it's really interesting to speak to you guys. That many of you are coming to this space for the first time, or you're relatively new to it. Some of you, and what you see when you get in, what you see now is like this kind of like a car dealership competition to sell kind of thing. And I'm sorry to be so blunt, but what you see is like, yeah, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of like marketing, and there's a lot of people shilling, and there's a lot of people trying to understand how they sell. And we understand that, but that is not, that is it, what one of the things that I think really disappointed me is that when we discovered the technology, and we discovered like that peer-to-peer stuff that would be so liberating, where eventually artists can basically and collectors interact together without intermediaries. You can when the possibilities of NFTs to be layered so that you collaborate with people and see digital content, could be music or could be video or could be animation. You could do all these kinds of very amazing things, where also, because you could, everything is proven and put on a blockchain, you could also create a system that could be more fair, so where you could maybe distribute things in a more fair manner. But then, as Bea said, very quickly just basically took everything that everybody claimed that we were going to revolutionize the art market, all the stuff that makes the art market so difficult for very talented, very hardworking artists like you to actually, to reach, because you either need like the education or the money or the contacts or the, all these like, to scale this really difficult fortress of gatekeepers. All of that was supposed to be disrupted by this, and up to a point it has. But then what happens is that it became apparent that the space took the exact dynamics of the regular art market and just put them into the blockchain on steroids. Blockchain makes it be on steroids because it's decentralized. I'm sorry about this.
Yeah, it makes it more efficient. So what we're seeing today is basically the exact replication of the art market everyone said wanted to disrupt, but in a way that is even more brutal. And so one thing, like even everybody, if you hear everybody talking about NFTs, they will say all these things about, oh my God, how revolutionary is the fact that you can get royalties. But they don't say the real story about royalties. We were the first into 2017. And after us, no one except for Super Rare adopted the royalties. And Super Rare, we had 40% of the profit because we knew that 10% it was going to be too little. So we had 40% on the profit, and nobody complained about that back then. But then Super Rare had 10%. And by the time we got to last year, 2020, I mean, we're talking after the pandemic began, only Super Rare had royalties, and they had bring it down from 10% to 3%. And no other platform had any royalties. Non-Origin, Makerspace, no one had any royalties. And a group of artists had to get together. And after the pandemic, really risk for them their NFT careers and said demand basically for at least 10% from all the platforms. And they actually were successful, and all the platforms agree, except for one, Makerspace. Place, I think they didn't agree, but then they actually changed it. But everybody talks about that when in fact nobody ever really believed in that. It's sort of like this hypocrisy, this like marketing like things, but they don't They don't really act on the things that they're supposed to be like doing. And that is very important because I'm talking to you as an artist. None of these platforms are made by artists. None of them, they're all developers or financial people or marketing people. We as artists have to be really, you know, cognizant about what is being built. And for us on DADA, we always say, you know how they always say, well, we have to make it really easy for people to onboard people. We have to make it seamless so that nobody even understands that they're like on the blockchain. We always say the opposite. I always say, no, artists need to understand the technology, because the more you understand the technology, the more we can actually influence how these tools are built, who builds these tools, and what's the mindset behind where the decisions that we're making as we build these tools. So instead of just being passive and consuming whatever is given to us, we now have an opportunity to actually do it from our point of view. And I think the only way for artists to be empowered is to understand the technology and do the tools themselves, or at the very least, understand the technology and pressure the platforms so that it goes in the direction that is really beneficial for artists, like the group of artists from last year did when they demanded the royalties. And so it's very important, because power is in knowledge, and the more you understand the technology, the more power you will have, the more power we all have as a group in terms of artists.
So as you can see, what you're gonna hear from us is very different from what you may see out there. But we are an artist collective, and we have always been about giving precedence, priority, and power to artists. So I think we are a really good alternative narrative to be aware of, because if you just look at Twitter or look at whatever it is where you participate in the community, you would never hear these kinds of stuff, and it is important to know that there are alternatives.
There are alternatives. There are a lot of people really amazing in this space. And I think I love Mikkel for that, because she, I think, understands the importance of really highlighting the people who are doing this kind of work. There's so many amazing people in the space. They don't get the press. They don't get, and we don't get it either anymore, because we decided not to sell early on in 2018. We used to get all this press, and now we don't get it because they ignore us because we don't sell. And so it's important to look for those people. If you're coming into the space to make money, which is understandable, in the transition into actually being empowered, we still have to make money and go for and do it. Play the game, but know that it's a game. And there's nothing fair about that game. It's just a game. And so you can either decide to play the game and try to be one of those artists who make it on the top list of the leaderboards, or you can decide to be experimental, really play with the technology, really find the community that is doing the interesting thing, that is really doing the innovation, and be part of that movement, because that is a different movement, and that is a decision that you have to make. And so what I will say in terms of we don't want to you to feel that that the thing it's all lost and there's no hope. It's the opposite. There's so much that's been done, and we will be back with you in a few weeks after everybody talks to you about the market. We're gonna be back with you, telling you what's the other option that we can actually go, and all the things that we have already done as a community. We basically design a completely new economic system, a completely new social system, a completely new governance system that never existed before, and just with artists. Artists designing this. We don't need economists. We don't need PhD in economics to make an economic system, because if you bring an economic PhD person, they're just going to replicate what they learn in school. What we need is artists who actually can think differently, who actually can give, we don't really give a shit about conventions, so we can break them and we can come up with new things. And whether that is, in our case, a completely new social economic system, which is a token economy, but it's a different kind of token economy, or whether it's art. If you look at it as art, as I look at our visual economy, which is how it's called, I look at data as a platform, as a work of art, and I look at the invisible economy as a work of collaborative art. If you look at it in those terms, you'll be surprised how much innovation and how much beauty you can create. And it's important that you know that you can do it. You don't need to be a software, a computer scientist. You need to be an economist. All we need to do as artists is to have even imagination, because all these people who have this expertise have the expertise, but they don't have the imagination. And this is why we're so important in this space. We have the imagination, and then we can collaborate with the computer scientists, and we can collaborate with the people who understand economy, because we are the ones driving that decision making. And so, I don't know, Judy, if you have in the presentation the comparative where we see like the difference between the art market and the crypto art market. Do you have that in the presentation? Maybe we can finish with that and then open.
Yeah, because you told me to down, so let me try to get it up again. But I wanted to say that, like, when we were invited to the Christie's First Art and Tech Summit, which was in 2018, at the time, I remember saying that what the promise of this technology for me, this is me speaking, was that you could actually, the art world as it used to be this sliver, like tiny little sliver, where there were 5 guys making all the money, or like 5 famous artists and very, very rich people. And it seemed to be so divorced from everybody's reality. Regular people were intimidated by it. Like museums, at least in the United States, are expensive to get into. I don't know. I never understood where or when art became an elitist place that could not be reached or made by people. And because one of the other things that happens in DADA is that we don't have curation. Anyone can go in and draw, and some of you already have, and I love that you went in for it. But anyone can draw on DADA, because it's not about this place that you have to scale Mount Everest to reach, whether as a collector or as an artist or as some, like, to me the greatest tragedy is that art is not available to more people, both to make it and to collect it and to enjoy it and to be moved by it. And so this is, I think, what I said at the time, is that basically what blockchain could do is take this tiny sliver of that was unreachable and untouchable and impossible, and open it wider for millions of people. Because the other thing that we learned with DADA is that there are millions of people who are enormously talented, enormously gifted. They may not have all of them gone to art school or had a career. Some of them have, some of them haven't. And to me, that was the beauty and the magic of this, was there will be more artists in the world, and this should not be a problem. This should not be like people in our space say, oh, don't mean that many, because if you mean too many, then your brand will, fuck that shit. I'm sorry, but like, what the fuck? Like, oh, don't make too much art. I understand like how the market works, but I think that as artists, you need to make more art, and you need to collaborate more, and you need to explore more stuff. So that's where I was talking about where I was disappointed is like thinking that we could kind of like, I mean, we used to call it like democratizing art, which is kind of a cliche, but really truly opening it. And I have seen that some of it has happened, because certainly now you could say, well, there is a very alive and vibrant art community. Before was non-existent, which is what a lot of our colleagues in these platforms use to say we revolutionized. Yes, now you are here and we know a lot of artists, but it's beyond that. It's not thinking that all of a sudden you become a commodity and your art becomes a commodity and you are a brand. I will say this, my personal opinion, you are not a brand. You are a person and you're an artist. You can say, the way you show whatever you think your brand is by actually creating stuff that you want to express. So you're going to hear other things from other colleagues of ours, but this is pretty much how we think. So now let me look for the presentation.
No, don't worry. I put it on the, I'm uploading the image on the Residency Artist channel. It's taking a little bit, but
let me see.
Let me know when it's there. But what I do want to, no, it's failing. Sorry, my internet is really bad. But what I want to say though, and then love to open to questions and comments, is it may sound at this point, after 4 years of working on NFTs, I think it's important not to be naive. It's important to be critical and to really listen to what platforms and people are saying and to be critical about it. Even us, be critical about it and do your research. If something resonates, try to connect with the people that are like doing something that you think is important. If it doesn't resonate, or if it sounds like everything else, or if it sounds like bullshit, well, understand why is that. And because it's still very early, I think it's too late in terms of the market. The market basically won. There is a window of time to do something different. We can do it because we started 4 years ago and we're ahead of everyone. But if we, as DADA, were coming into blockchain today, we wouldn't have a chance. And that's the same with artists. The more like the market developed, the least somebody from, I understand there's people here from Cuba and Iran, and I'm from Venezuela. I know how it is. The more the market develops, the least opportunity for such people there is. In fact, somebody was telling me that 80% of the NFT artists currently are coming from from California in the US. That's super, super specific. 80% coming from California, super specific. And you have to see where the platforms are coming, including DADA. We're from New York, but we're people from Latin America, but the actual company was founded in New York. The majority of the platforms are either from the US or from Europe. The majority of platforms are are founded by white male. The majority of platforms are just the same replication of the old structures. So we have to be mindful of that and understand that defines the decisions on how these things are built and who gets to benefit from this platform.
I think that kind of like it's interesting because I think that because Bea and I'm from Mexico, Bea is from Venezuela, Abraham, our first development team was also from Venezuela. I think that it's not a coincidence that we have, and also, we're two women. It's also, it's not a coincidence that we always had a different vision, because our reality, even though we were based in New York, we come from countries where we see how people struggle, and we come, it's very different from, you just have it kind of in your bones. So when I speak about, all those amazing people, we started out with a lot of Latin American artists for the simple reason that when we were starting out, and we were like a classic startup in a way, and we went to startup school, and they tell you, oh, grow your community. We bought Facebook ads. We did something that I think was very smart, which was we did an app for Facebook so that people didn't have to leave Facebook when they wanted to draw. And in order to reach people, we bought Facebook ads, and the cheapest ones were for Latin America, and for, and so we were able to build this amazing community very quickly. And I at least realized the incredible amount of talent that people all over the world have. And that to me was the amazing thing, to make it truly global, to make it truly, just like hugely, just to bring art to everyone.
But you make it sound though like it was just a coincidence.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying. That it's not a coincidence.
But you're saying that it's because the ads were cheap. That was not the reason. The reason it was because we knew that the people that we wanted to attract was not my friends, my artist friends from New York. I have so many artist friends, right? In New York, who are very successful. They're like, they're like the creators of shows for Cartoon Network and Disney. Those were not the people that we wanted to attract. We wanted to attract the people who is always in the shadows. And that is why we always focused on making sure that we lower the barriers for people who cannot access markets like the US markets. And so that's why there is also a tool. You don't need anything other than obviously Wi-Fi and some kind of laptop to be able to draw on data. But you don't need to buy expensive software. You don't need to buy expensive equipment. There's people that just uses trackpad or the mouse. They don't even need the tablet. It really is important to think, because they always tells you, well, why don't you bring a celebrity artist so that data, really grows. Well, we don't want to. We know them. We have so many friends. I have personally, after 20 years in career in New York, of course I know them. They won Oscars, everything. But that is not the point. The point was always lower the barriers so that more people can make art. Yes. And I think it's important to think about that in terms of blockchain. It's not about making it easy for people to just go and sell their shit. It's more about lower the barriers so that more people can actually be part of it. And that means we live in an ecosystem that is English-centric. So anyone who doesn't speak English can't really be part of it. We need to lower the barrier. We need to lower the barrier of what's the perception of what you could understand of the technology. It makes it look like the technology is way too complicated to understand it, but that is not true. We need to lower the barriers so that people understand more quickly the technology so that they can use it on their advantage. Those things are the things that are important.
And I would say also that's what we did, because at DADA we onboarded a lot of artists at the very beginning. No one really was like a crypto artist because that was so new for everyone, and so we actually onboarded many of our artists MetaMask, we said you have to open this wallet, you have to kind of learn the ropes. And then you have the tools and you have the resources to use them as however you see. So many of our artists actually, they got it, they understood how it worked, and they started going into other platforms, and some of them have actually garnered like a following, and they've done well. But it's just like Bea says, because they went in there and they researched and they understood the technology, and then they had the options to decide what they want with their art. Do you want me to show any slide? Because I found the
if you have the slide of the comparison between the art market and the crypto art market, yes, and
let me look for it because I don't know. In the meantime, talk.
No. Well, so I will just saying that it sounds like like I just want you to not be naive and not believe everything you hear. Be critical, and know that there is huge amount of hope in this space and with this technology, but you need to really understand it and understand that you can't make a change. It is possible. We don't have a lot of time before it's not possible anymore. It's like you think about it in terms of Web 2. Like there is not really a lot of opportunity to change anything in platforms, in the Web 2 world, like Facebook, Amazon, and so on. Like we already have the winners. There are 4 winners. It's Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and Microsoft, and that's it. Here it's too early, so we still have a window of opportunity to do some things different, but that window of opportunity is closing really fast because everything is about scarcity, money, and winners and losers, and it doesn't have to be that way. So I think what we wanted to give you this time was like there is a way of making communities being beautiful and being about art and being about the relationships and being about this like creativity and fostering creativity and doing good things for fun. That is what DADA is, and there's a way of making that sustainable. That is what the invisible economy is, and we will talk about it in I think a month or so. But what is important is that there's a gap between those two things. So in order to be able to get to a new, completely new type of a structure, social economic structure, we need to understand first what's wrong with the current system. And to really understand it, not to say just, oh, that's capitalist or that's, this neoliberalism. No, it's not about neoliberalism. It's not about capitalism. It's much more deep than that. And so to understand those dynamics, well, you want to play the market, go for it, but understand the dynamics so that you can really help promote a completely new space that is truly revolutionary for people.
So I'm thinking that it would be great to open up a discussion, no?
Yeah.
Now
yeah,
that we're, if anyone has comments, questions, anything, it would be nice to have a conversation. Don't be shy. And we can answer all kinds of things, not only, we can answer about if people are curious about the beginning.
Let them talk.
So, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts, but I don't want to, overcome the conversation. Also, sorry for the noise, but it's like pouring down with rain here in London. It's so bad.
Sounds like rain.
Yes, it's
Sounds
crazy.
beautiful, though.
Yeah. We are having a very nice rainy summer here. But I would love to understand also your perspective on Hic et Nunc, and how do you think that maybe even changed some of the market dynamics in a way that were happening?
Yeah, I heard a lot about Hikenunk from our own community. They were very excited about it. So at some point I went in and started collecting. And I loved it. We actually did an entire session on collecting on Hikenunk, and we talked about why it was so special. And you can see that on YouTube. That was like, I think, sometime in May. And I think there were several things that were special about Hikenunk at the time, which were, for instance, the fact that you didn't have leaderboards, the fact that you didn't have a way of finding an artist, but you had to actually go through collections of other people to find new art, because whether that was intended or unintended, what does that? What that does is that you are now connecting with people through their taste. And as sort of like the way you connect with somebody on data by drawing with each other, you're now connecting with somebody with their taste, and it's really a beautiful thing.
And also,
Um,
it focuses on the art. It really makes the art the focus of everything, not the name, not who, but really the first kind of like interaction that you have is directly with the art. I thought that was really.
Yeah, so a lot of those things, and the same happened with data, are flukes. They're like accidents, happy accidents that happen. I do not believe that that was intentional, but that was the thing that emerged. And so what we did with data when we saw things like that emerge, we just doubled down on those and got rid of the things that we like, just to protect those things. But what I think is happening with Hikanook now, that I know all this like community stuff that's been happening, I think what's happening, that part of the community is pushing for Hikanook to become just like another marketplace, because again, it's lack of imagination, right? Like people only understand prices go up, selling, secondary markets, leaderboards, and so on. And it's clear that that was not the intention of Raphael. But I did listen to, I think it was like 2 hours of that interview with Raphael, when he was talking about all the issues with, I don't know when there was like the hack. And I have to say that I was incredibly disappointed, because it was clear to me, one thing was very clear to me, and it was his disdain for the community. And if you are the person designing something and you have disdain for the community, then you're never, ever, ever going to be able to do something that it will really benefit people. What happened was, to me, a fluke, an accident, and you cannot evolve an accident into something greater unless you recognize the power of that accident. And I don't think that's the case with Rafael. He just seems to me a developer that wants to experiment with smart contracts. That's his thing. And art was just the low hanging fruit to do it, because there is so much fuss with NFTs. So what I tell our community who were really invested on Hikanook is that just be prepared, because it's going to go in a very different direction of what you want and what you're hoping for. And just, don't be disappointed.
Hopefully
Because I
not,
know,
because it was really a great way to discover artists and to also make it affordable. I thought that the fact that because of the problem of expensive gas and stuff was making it so hard for everyone, for artists to meet, for collectors to buy. And then you have this platform which is kind of like a little bit anarchic, and where you find new people, and you also had pretty established artists also selling for affordably. I thought that was really,
it was a
a
beautiful
wonderful
thing.
thing. Yeah.
It was, but I want to make a point about what you just said, and it's the same point that I always make to Jason, because Jason seems to believe that nothing is written yet. Like, we can't really say what's going to happen in 2 years or 5 years, because who knows if Bitcoin goes up or up, or it's not true. And what you just said, Judy, like, well, we hope not, is that we have to understand these systems have outcomes, and the decisions that you're making have an outcome. There's no way a speculative market will give anything else than extreme inequality. It's proven. There's enormous evidence about that. We have the world that we have today with extreme inequality that we have because of markets. There's no other evidence that markets can give results in any other way. So we need to understand that these things are not, they're not things that we just don't know what's going to happen. We know what's going to happen when we're designing them. We design them in a way for a reason.
But
So
I was under the impression that that is not set in stone, that there are two camps and some people want it to change and other people don't want it to change.
Well,
So I'm not saying that I only said that I'm hoping that it remain. I understand what you're saying because I'm the first one to say that nothing, for instance, all the outcomes that we have in DADA, the reason why people collaborate so beautifully, the reason why they have made so much their friendships is because it was designed that way. We could have designed it in a completely different way. We could have designed it to be competitive and to pit artists against each other and to put a leaderboard that we used to have and we took it out because it wasn't doing anything and it was actually creating friction between artists. I completely believe that is, as you say, one of the biggest problems, that people use these systems and think that it's kind of like by default. And no, these are by design. They are by design. So,
yeah.
What
I'm saying with Hickenlock is that, in my view, this is not a platform created for artists. This is a platform created to experiment with smart contracts. And that's a different thing. So artists need to understand that what is happening now is an accident. And if you're making decisions based on experimenting with smart contracts and having that kind of sovereignty, which Raphael calls basically the right he has to just do that and not let anyone else like interrupt with that, which he has all the rights. But that is one thing, one direction. I have nothing to do with artists. In those 2 hours that I heard, artists and art were named twice. In 2 hours, twice. Listen to anything about data, and you will listen the word artist and art a million times. Because for us, it's all about the artist, not even about the art, the artist, and the process of creating art. And so those things are important because people get disappointed afterwards because they have false expectations.
I think we have a question from Andrea, which says, how does DADA platform economically sustain itself?
So for a while, it was just Judy and I basically financing everything. And then now, actually, we presented a paper last year called The Invisible Economy. We presented it at Radical Exchange in June last year. And this is what we're going to talk in the next call, so I'm not going to go too much into it. But basically, the whole premise of the paper is based on one fact, on one insight. 50 years of research about this is that at the moment that you replace intrinsic motivations, the love to make art, the love to collaborate, to be part of a community, with extrinsic rewards, leaderboards, status, money, intrinsic rewards diminish or completely disappear. And this is true for everybody, not just for artists. This is true for every person on earth. And our entire society is built on extrinsic rewards. The markets are systems that optimize for money. And so what we did with the invisible economy was had this hypothesis that we said, okay, if that is true and we cannot do this without money and without the markets, then the way to do it is to make the market invisible. And the invisible economy is basically the radical separation of the market with art making and art. So after we published the paper, we said, well, we cannot go and raise money to hire people to do this, because it's like the opposite to what we're saying that we should, that the invisible economy is. We have to live the invisible economy and see if this is true. We know that it's true with the artists. We have artists drawing on data just based on intrinsic motivations for years. But are we going to find the developers and the the token engineers and that are going to do it for intrinsic rewards only? And so we actually did it. We started at the time working groups, and we invited all the people that we thought could help us. And since then, it's been almost a year of having sessions every week with all kinds of people and a group of people in general that have been building the invisible economy. So we actually developed the invisible economy, all the details of this completely new system, without once paying anyone, with no money, with no any incentives that were extrinsic, with no any kind of quid pro quo. We're developing virtual worlds. We are doing exhibitions. We're doing all kinds of things, and people are doing it just for the love of it. And what's happened, even like we got the Crips and Weirdos, some kind of like NFT craze that happened a few months ago, and they were not on sale, but a bunch of collectors found it, and in a matter of hours, there were hundreds of thousands of dollars sold on these Crips and Weirdos from this 2017. And we have a fund that is 100% a DADA fund that the community manages, and we have barely touched it, actually.
So,
because
to
we
answer
are,
a little bit
no,
more.
but I just want to end by saying that it is possible, actually, to do this without any money, without optimizing for money. Even if we didn't have any money, we did it. And it's all about, evolving into launching our token economy in the near future, in which all the contributions are going to be rewarded, but they're going to be rewarded in their own way for the things that we value, which are not the same things that the market values.
So just like, to answer that question more kind of, I think that's like a really great overview. But as Bea said, at first we bootstrapped it for many years, basically. We everything into it, Bea and I. We also got at some point modest investment from Consensus, and then we also have which we used. At the time where what we call the Ape Storm happened, where they started buying stuff that we didn't have for sale. That investment from Consensus was long gone. So basically, that's how we have took all this time to really come up with a different way of doing things, and that's how we're doing.
So some of our artists, because we had the smart contracts were decentralized, right? So at that point, 70% will go to the artists and 30% will go to the DADA fund. What happened that Sunday 3 months ago is that some artists woke up with $6,000 in their MetaMask account, or $12,000, or $20,000, $25,000, and even $40,000 in their MetaMask. These are artists in Latin America mostly. These are artists who, they don't know how they're gonna get to the next month in terms of paying rent, and they got all that bunch of money just like at that windfall. And what happened is that our biggest fear, which was back when CryptoKitties and Pepes, was, if we do this, we're going to have artists getting $40,000 for an artwork, and a lot of others who are not going to sell anything. And how is that going to impact the actual community? But now that we already have the invisible economy, now that it's been 4 years of working together with the community, it actually didn't interrupt anyone. It was like living the invisible economy, because they didn't have to shield, they didn't have to sell anything, they didn't have to market. They just got a bunch of money one day, and it didn't change their relationships and their dynamics within DADA. After that, we all decided to stop that contract and make sure that from now on, what we're going to sell, 100% goes to the DADA fund. none of them say, no, I want all the money by myself. None of the people who didn't get any money, because it's all arbitrary, right? Some artworks were active and so were not active. So some artists got a lot of money, but some other artists from the same collection didn't get anything. Nobody complained. Nobody said, oh, that was unjust, because they're giving so much value already. It was just deserving. And so what is important is that relationships are not affected, that people don't become more competitive, that people continue to be protective to each other, caring about each other, that the friendships are more solid today than they have ever been. And for us, the question of how it's sustainable is like, well, now we can actually go ahead and sell to the market, because it's so radically separated from our own dynamics, that we're protected from everything that is toxic about that market. They're not going to be more competitive. They're not going to be more greedy. It's not going to be unfair, because it's sort of like money comes in, but it's distributed in the way that we value it, not the way the market values, not the way a collector, because a collector said that this was the artist he wanted to pump and put a lot of money in and get to the top. Not because of that, but because of the value we have all put into the community. And we know what that value is, and it's intangible. You can't measure it. We even found a way of representing that value in visuals that are beautiful. You can see all of that on YouTube. Beautiful ways, almost art, of ways of how we feel when we draw, how we feel when we're like conversing with each other. And that is what is going to be valued in order to distribute our token. But that's a conversation for the future, so that we can go into it.
Any other questions or comments? We'd love to hear from you.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Callan. So I don't know if it's a question or if it's going to turn out to be just a comment, but I wanted to say, first of all, that I really appreciated this conversation. There was like so many things that touched on, or that really clicked with some of my own thoughts, which are really just starting to form right now. And so I'm a crypto writer, but my work in this space really focuses on experimentation that the space makes possible, not only in terms of like just the technology, but also like commentaries about the culture that's forming around crypto and the crypto art scene. And I really like to play around with this. And I think that's like an interesting avenue that I'd love to explore more, like this notion of the artist as like a cultural social critic. And I think this type of figure could be important for the crypto art world. For example, like how inextricably linked the space is with like market dynamics, like you guys were talking about, or to highlight exclusions that are still taking place. So I don't know. I feel like if I go too far into the critic mode, I'm sure I'll probably alienate my collectors or potential collectors. So I don't know. I'm kind of I guess I'm debating. I don't know if it's a good idea. I'd love to do more of it, but at the same time, my goal is eventually to be able to make money as an artist and to be able to do this full time. And right now, I still have a day job because I don't want to put pressure on my art to kind of like sell out and make art that caters to the market, and just be able to do stuff that I am curious about or interested in. But yeah, I don't want to jeopardize that chance of being able to be able to live off my work.
Well, I'm not an artist, and this may be naive, but it seems to me that the more you evolve as an artist, regardless of what, and if in your exploration you mean to be critical, I don't think that's going to alienate anyone. Frankly, it's going to make you into a mature artist that's going to have a point of view, and you'll always find collectors or people who will appreciate that. What I would, that's what I think our artists should really go. And I mean, to me, artists are people who take enormous risks. Just by being an artist, you're already taking an enormous risk. And so if you start kind of hedging your bets and thinking, but like I don't want to alienate, what you end up doing maybe is I mean, and it may be fine if that's what you want to do.
Let me answer that in a different way, because I agree with Judy. I think the important thing about what Judy's saying is that if you do that critical thinking, if that comes through the art,
exactly,
if it's the art in which you are actually doing that criticism, that's very valuable, and that's what art should be about. But if it's like you on Twitter criticizing the market, that won't do it, right?
That's what that's what I wanted to say. That's what I mean, like exploring. I mean, look at the history of art. Look at the Dadaists. Look at artists that actually, through their art, were really kind of talking. And it's not always overt, but they were subverting their time. They were really saying, I want to do things differently. Those are the ones that tend to remain, right? And to actually make a difference, instead of just becoming like a factory of empty gestures and cliche,
So let me answer that in a different way, though, because there's a few things about what you just said. One is we all need money. The invisible economy is predicated on the sole idea of acting in your intrinsic rewards. But you can only act in your intrinsic rewards if you have a minimum of baseline, that is your minimum material base protected, right? If you have to worry about paying rent or putting food in your table, nobody is actually going to be able to do anything with intrinsic motivation. So just do whatever you do to get the money to get the food on the table, right? So that's an assumption that needs to be there. Unless like you have a day job, that's what serves for your material needs, right? But we understand that it's a privilege in itself to be able to say no to the market and say, like, this is what we're doing. So in our case, we actually onboarded all our artists to the different crypto art platforms. We did it in Spanish so more people could actually get into it, instead of saying, well, just wait for the visual economy. That will be, I think, cruel and self-serving. No, you don't have to wait. Go and, know all these things about the market, but go and make your money in the meantime as we develop the visual economy, right? That's the most important thing, to make sure that you're financially independent and as much as you can. But there's another truth to that thing, which is that there are two things that I think are important. One is, at the moment you're preserving the let's say the sanctity of your art by getting the money out of your day job. But at the moment that you become a full-time crypto artist that only sells, at that moment your extrinsic motivations are going to kick in. There's no way, not for you, not for me, not for anyone. This is just biology and chemical truth, that you are not going to be making art that caters to the market. That's just how it is. And so if you really want to preserve that, then you either never sell on the market, right? You always keep your day job, or you go into some project like the Invisible Economy and DADA, or some other project that may be out there in which you don't have to jeopardize that. But the reality is that if you go to the market, that is what's going to happen. And in my mind, actually, we all have different definitions of art, but for sure, I know that art that is made to sell is not art. It's artistic. You can, show your talents and your whatever concepts and things like that. I did that for 20 years in the commercial world. None of the art, and it was super creative and it was super beautiful.
Really good.
None of the art actually made anything that sort of crossed my life, that transformed me. in any way because it was commercial. You're doing something, you get really good at, at knowing what people will want and how to get there and blah, blah. Instead, the things that we do when we're doing it for us, the things that come out of our, Freud used to say that art was this thing that when we explore like our more like obscure desires, our repressed feelings, all of that stuff that we don't even know that we're working on with, and then you put it out there as a form of art, and somebody else sees it, recognizes it in themselves. That's what art is. It transforms you. And so all the people that who's doing crypto art for marketplaces are me doing art for advertising. And so you also have to make the decision whether you actually do art or you do commercial art. Those are two different things.
And I think, yeah, and I think that like you're not gonna hear marketing advice from us, obviously, but I think and I mean, we both come from that world, and so we ran away from it as fast as we.
As fast, I don't know. It took 20 years to me.
Yeah, well, whatever. But that was as fast as we could. But like, other people would say at the beginning, well, Dada, you should have advertising, you should have brands, and we're like, we'll throw ourselves at the. Okay, but what I wouldn't fear alienation of anything, because I think you will always find someone that your art is going to speak directly to. So all I would say is that put it out there, because you will find a kindred spirit that'll say what Kaylin is doing speaks. If, however, you go, I'm gonna do what X is doing because that seems to be selling, you also may find people, but
Well, but there's also another reality, though. There's another reality. There is a taste that is implemented in each platform, and there is a taste that is implemented in the crypto art space. This is a space of crypto bros, and that defines the taste, because the whales defines who gets up, what gets bought, and what doesn't. The beautiful thing about Hikeknong is that actually subverted that for a while. I don't know if it's true anymore, or if it will be true in the next year, but it did subvert that. So look for the places in which it tends to be that at the beginning, you have that effervescence. What is hard is to maintain that effervescence throughout time, which is what we have done with data. We have maintained it. That what is normal is that at the beginning, projects have that, and then they lose it. So all I'm saying is, like, just don't be naive. Know what the actual reality is, and make decisions based on actual facts.
And I would also say
decision for you.
There's nothing more exciting to see artists evolve. When you follow the trajectory of an artist, that you can see them experimenting, and you can see them finding their voice, and you can see maturing their voice, and you can and then moving. Because the other thing that happens is that in this space, and that's another thing not to be naive of, is all of a sudden, because of the lack of structures, the lack of gatekeepers, the lack of curators, the lack of the free for all, that I think in a way is wonderful. Also, all of a sudden, collectors were trying to tell artists what to do. Collectors were saying, no, you have to do more of this, and you cannot do that. And why are you doing not this style? Because collectors had the goal at some point to say to someone that they were depreciating their assets. I'm like, you can't listen to that shit, because no collector can tell you what to do. No one can tell you what to do.
Well, but I'm sorry to say that if you want to sell, that's exactly what you should do. Well, so that is what we are not naive, right? Like, and to give you an example, Kaylin, we're gonna do this now. We're gonna sell our collections after 4 years of saying we're not gonna do this, and we're not going to participate on this, because we already have the invisible economy. We're actually going out, and we're going to say exactly everything that we always say we were not going to do. Everything, with all the marketing, with all the engineering of hype. Because it's a game. It's a game, and the thing about that game is that you don't have ethics in that game. That game is about making money, and when it's about making money, your mind narrow focus on that. And this is not what the reason why what I'm saying what we're going to do is because this is not a moral value judgment. It's not, you guys do whatever you feel you need to do, and that's always going to be respected. But you need to know the reality, why you're doing it and how you're playing it. So in our case, we're going to go full in, and we have to overcome the fact that collectors think that we're anarchists, and some of them think that we're communist, and some of them think that we're way too pro-artist and anti-collectors. We're going to have to overcome all of that because we've been saying these things for 4 years, and yet now we're going to play the market in the most like brutal way. But we can do it. We can do it. But hold on, we can do it because there's no ethical concerns about us doing this right now, and mainly because the way this is going to be distributed, because our collections are historically very important, so they can reach millions of dollars, because all of that money is going to go to the community entirely, and it's going to go in the way we want to, and in the way that is not going to change the dynamics that we already have. That's the thing. As long as you find a way of doing that for you, kudos.
And also, one important thing is that these things that we're putting out on sale, we had already put out on sale. So we're not doing any new art. We're not like, this is stuff that was already out there that we put out there as experiments years ago, and we're reissuing. So,
well, they're tokenized already. They're tokenized. We had to deal with the things that were tokenized on the market because we're actually, in the visual economy, art is never going to be sold. We don't need to sell art to actually create value. But that's a hard thing for people to grasp. The fact that we actually don't need money and we're not going to sell art.
We'll leave you for the next part. So we can leave that for the next part.
But know the game, know the rules, and make sure that you play them.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I don't want to hog the mic, but I remember Judy talking about releasing her NFT novel during the talk with Art Gnome with Jason Bailey. So I just wanted to know more about that, but maybe you can post in the
sure.
text
I mean,
channel,
I was going to say that
learn more.
Now that I have you all here, for mentorship or like one-on-ones, I could do stuff that has to do with writing, stuff that has to do with community, stuff that has to do with kind of cultural criticism. And also puedo hacerlo en español. I can do it in Spanish as well. So I'll be happy to. And just for the novel, and I'm glad you brought it up. It's just another instance of a business that is ripe for blockchain. Is perfect because, like, you know, now, like, publishing is just so perfect because you, in a smart contract, the writer gets paid the royalty they deserve immediately. The publisher gets paid whatever they need, and there's no like 10 pages of like something that you have to write down and amend and whatever. But it's to me it's kind of interesting how come like some of these things have not yet. It just shows how early we still are, that some of these things that to me are kind of like music, photography, literature, publishing, stuff like that is still kind of early. Art was one of the really early use cases, and it's like the most tried and true and tested use case. And I'm thinking, but what about other digital content? So I'll be happy to talk to you, Kaylin. And I think it's wonderful. There is one platform, I still have to remember the name, but there is a platform on Ethereum where people actually do writing and they do kind of poetry together and they tokenize it. So I'll look for it because I saw it somewhere, but I can't remember the name. But there's plenty of room for experimentation.
Maybe it might be Ether Poems. No.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I was actually I'm one of the Ether poets.
Oh, great.
The second one.
Oh, great.
That's fantastic.
And I mean,
but I
poetry,
would
I
love-
mean, if you talk about art, poetry is that poor, like, neglected, wonderful thing that no one ever buys, you know? So
Yeah.
it's interesting. Maybe this kind of medium that can also be played with in ways that it makes it interesting. I mean, not that poetry is more interesting, but that it makes it more available.
I actually have, me and a couple of friends are thinking of forming some sort of platform or agency to onboard poets from the traditional publishing world to the blockchain. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to hug the mic, but I'd love to like pick your brain about all of this. So maybe I can. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, I'll hand the mic over to someone else.
Just wondering if we have any other thoughts from anybody else around. Yeah, Murat?
I can
Yeah.
speak a little bit. Oh,
Sorry, I
so
think Murat was unmuted before, so if we have him, then Mablab, you can go.
Yeah, go Mablab, I'll ask later.